The Miami Dolphins keep sending signals, intentional or not, that they are refusing to collapse into excuses or surrender to what the standings say. Anyone paying attention can feel it. The team is playing with that strange mix of urgency and long-view thinking, the kind that makes you wonder what exactly is unfolding behind the scenes. Because when a team insists it is still in the hunt, still breathing, still capable of making noise, yet at the same time starts quietly stacking young pieces that might not fully bloom until later, it raises questions. What are they planning? Why now? And what do they see that the rest of us are still trying to decipher? This latest roster move says plenty. The Dolphins reached once again into another team's practice squad and pulled out someone they believe is worth more than just a temporary body. Cornerback A.J. Green, the one whose name always sparks a flash of confusion because it brings back memories of the former Cincinnati star receiver, suddenly finds himself wearing Miami colors. And no, this is not a blockbuster edition. No alarm sounding. No fanfare. But it feels like one of those moves that sits quietly until it suddenly becomes important. Green is not a mystery, but he is not exactly a player whose story has been fully written. He entered the league in 2020 as an undrafted free agent and somehow managed to survive long enough to build a resume of 36 career games. That may not sound like much, yet surviving in the league without draft pedigree says something. But those 36 games stretch across years in uneven ways. Most of them, the bulk of the real snaps, came during his time in Cleveland, back in 2021 and 2022, when he managed to carve out enough opportunities to make coaches take notice. Since then, though, he has bounced around, shifting between practice squads, appearing for a moment, fading again, resurfacing somewhere else. It is the kind of path that tests a player more than anything that happens on the field. What is curious is how Miami always seems to find these players at specific moments. Green played 2 games this season for the Rams, just temporary elevations from the practice squad, facing the Ravens and then the Saints. Nothing dramatic, nothing that lit up highlight shows, but the Dolphins still saw value. Why him? Why now? Is this just depth? A reaction to injuries? Or is the organization grabbing someone they believe deserves a second or third or fourth chance to become something more? Looking at his past, you find glimpses that explain the intrigue. Back in 2021, he delivered the closest thing to a breakout he has had. 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries, all in that single season. 1 takeaway against the Steelers, 2 more against the Bengals. Strange coincidences that shape how people remember a defender. He did not maintain that production, but he did not vanish either. There's always this sense that if he landed in the right situation, with the right coaches, he could make a jump. His college days at Oklahoma State still linger as proof of what he once was capable of. For seasons, nearly 150 tackles, 6 interceptions, a touchdown, dozens of passes defensed, a long list of moments where he was the one preventing the big play, the one stopping drives, the one forcing quarterbacks to look elsewhere. You see those numbers and wonder whether the player who posted them still exists somewhere beneath the layers of professional setbacks. The physical profile is part of the answer. 6'2", almost 200 pounds, long frame, strong enough to disrupt routes, and he brings special teams experience, something Miami values more than outsiders sometimes notice. Because special teams is often where hidden contributors grow into something greater, where coaches test trust and mentality. There is also the pattern. This is not the Dolphins' first time dipping into another team's practice squad in recent weeks. Not long ago, they grabbed outside linebacker Andre Carter II from Detroit. The move made noise because it came shortly after Miami traded Jaylon Phillips, leaving a hole that demanded reinforcements. Carter arrived with expectations, maybe not enormous, but at least enough to make fans wonder if he could be the one to surprise everyone down the stretch. Yet he stayed inactive through his first 2 games in Miami, watching from the sideline, waiting for something. What exactly? It is hard to say. Maybe he is absorbing the playbook. Maybe coaches want to see something specific in practice before they unleash him. Or maybe, and this is a question worth asking, these moves are less about immediate help and more about planting seeds for the next version of the roster. But everything shifted with the situation involving Juju Brents. His injury changed the equation in ways that forced the Dolphins' hand. Brents had barely settled into his role when the season suddenly slipped out of his grasp. A fracture in his foot, the kind that demands surgery and patience, not tape and adrenaline. Season ending, according to reports. And even though the team avoided outright confirmation at first, the tone from head coach Mike McDaniel made the truth difficult to deny. You could hear the concern, the hesitation, that careful balance coaches use when they already know the answer but are waiting for medical clarity. Brents had only started 2 games for Miami, yet those 2 games were enough to spark excitement. The performance against Buffalo, the way he settled in, the way he looked comfortable despite just arriving from Indianapolis after roster cuts, felt like something real. Fans noticed. Coaches noticed. There was a calmness to how he played, a sense that he might be exactly the kind of player who fits into what Miami is building on defense. And then it was gone. Now the Dolphins must adjust again. Brents remains under contract through 2026, so this is not the end of his future in Miami. But his absence right now forces decisions. And that brings us back to A.J. Green. Is Green a replacement? Or is he something else? Somebody the team wants to evaluate before the offseason? Someone they believe has the kind of physical traits that can be molded and sharpened? Or maybe they simply want to stock the secondary with as many options as possible, knowing that the league has become a place where corners are always one play away from becoming essential. There's also this question lingering in the background. What does this say about Miami's confidence in the remaining defensive backs? Are they comfortable? Or has the coaching staff seen vulnerabilities that outsiders have missed? When a team repeatedly dips into the league to add depth at one position group, it usually means that the internal conversations have touched on trust, responsibility, and risk. And even though it feels like the Dolphins are still fighting for this season, pushing towards something meaningful, these moves hint at a franchise that understands the importance of preparing for everything. The present matters, but so does the next training camp, the next preseason, the next wave of roster decisions. They are trying to survive injuries now, while also scanning ahead to build the layers that give a roster longevity. Watching a team make these kinds of moves late in the season often sparks debate. Some fans see it as a sign of confidence, adding players for depth, competition, and stability. Others interpret it as a hint that coaches are unsure about what they already have. And then there are those who think these additions might eventually lead to unexpected stories, the kind where a quiet signing becomes a key piece months later. Could Green become that? Could Carter? Could someone else still be incoming before the season closes? There's no clear answer. Not yet, but the pattern is forming. Miami is balancing the tightrope between chasing what is still available and shaping what is coming next. Injuries have forced movement. Depth concerns have pushed the front office into action. And each new player brings questions, possibilities, and a little bit of hope that something surprising could emerge. Green's arrival will not dominate national headlines. It will not overwhelm conversations, but it will sit there, quietly, almost unnoticed, until the moment he steps on the field and gives everyone a reason to rethink what they assumed. And maybe that is the whole point. Maybe the Dolphins see something. Maybe Green is ready to prove something. And maybe this move, small as it seems, will matter more than anyone expects. Because sometimes the roster decisions teams make during uncertain stretches reveal more about their identity than the big moves ever could. The Dolphins are not folding. They are not stepping back. They are not locking into survival mode. They are still moving, still searching, still adjusting, still building. And if there is one thing worth asking right now, it is this. What exactly are they preparing for this season, or the one that comes right after it?